All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I think there's about 90 of you that responded, so we're super excited about this discussion, and it's clearly very timely for a lot of you. So over the next 30, 40 minutes, we're going to be talking about how AI can actually enhance social listening. As somebody myself have been a social media manager and director for a long time, this has always been an area that has been really challenging to try to do accurately. So I'm really excited to do this. So we'll start off with some introductions. I'm Tim Fullerton. I am CMO for Jaxon AI and also president and CEO of my own digital agency, Fullerton Strategies. And we'll go to Scott next.
Scott Cohen, founder, CEO of Jaxon. We've been doing a lot of work in the social listening, social analytics space for governments and the commercial industry.
Cool. Justin.
Hey, Justin Wyman, Chief Revenue Officer at SocialGist. I've spent my entire career in the data collection and analytics space, primarily for brand research, market research, et cetera.
Great. And Aaron?
Aaron Barr, excuse me, co-founder, CTO of PyQ Media. We're a social media analytics and intelligence platform. My background is primary U.S. government intelligence, and for the last 10 years, laser focused on social.
Great. All right. Well, we'll dive into it in just a second, but I also wanted to let folks that are watching right now, if you have questions about this, please feel free to drop them in the comments, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. But to kick it off, I think I'd love to just start with sort of some basics about social listening. And this question is for the group, is basically like, how are most social teams doing social listening now?
I'll take the first. What I'm seeing is there are a number of options for folks. They can get a canned solution where they can analyze social and it checks a box. And then there are solutions like PyQ and SocialGist provide where you can get really specific to your company's needs, really specific to the use case and the audience that you're trying to target. And by bringing in technologies like Jaxon to lay on top of that, really be able to understand relationships, not only across people, but across people and across platforms. I'll chime back in a minute, but I want to leave some room for Aaron and Justin.
Yeah, I think, clearly social listening is different depending on what market you're in, different platforms, service different market segments. And so you focus on some of the different social media platforms, trying to get a more comprehensive view of your audience or the market audience. It's been challenging, especially as of recent, since 2016, and especially into recently with Twitter and the drastic changes that are occurring through their APIs and what you can get access to. I kind of feel for people that are doing social listening because of those drastic changes and probably some of the frustration that goes along with having access to some data, but not all the data that you'd like to have access to.
Yeah. So, Justin, do you want to add, or are you good?
The one thing I would add, just to build on Scott and Aaron's point, is, I think of it as templated or canned social listening, meaning you're using a product that has come to market. And when I think about the larger context of this conversation, how AI helps, AI is enabling more customization, enabling more specific model building. So you can take something like SocialGist data, apply Scott's technology platform, Jaxon, and use Aaron's experience in a much faster, more unique and specific way, which leads to more insights. So I think everybody's moving from a canned to a customized environment because AI enables us to do that for the first time, really.
Let me just riff on that a little bit, Tim. So what I see a lot of people doing is waving a wand, not just for social, but in general. Let's throw some AI at it. We'll analyze Twitter, analyze Facebook, what have you. But you really need to get, like Justin's saying, really specific on what you're looking for. Not just the audiences that you're targeting, but what are the topic threads that you want to really drill into? What do you want to accomplish from doing the social listening? What's the end goal of social listening? Not just
I just want to take a little bit of more upon that too, Scott, because I think it's important, especially in this conversation, is I think that previous social listening perspectives were very much focused on what we would call superficial performance metrics. And therefore, you might wonder, do I really need AI to do social listening? I really need some more in-depth, visualization capabilities, things like that. But what we have found is one of the challenges is getting access to the data. But once you have access to the data, there are some very important characteristics around audience, around influencer audience, around the relationships and activity patterns that allows you to get, layers deeper than just past, well, what's my reach? How many followers have I gained? Those types of things, which really don't tell you very much, especially about the specific audience that you're trying to get a hold of.
And what's fascinating about that is the best analysis I've seen is all about segmentation, and that's only going to get more powerful yet more confusing with generative AI, right? You're going to have groups of people that you're following online, and let's say we're both yelling about the same subject. Well, if I'm yelling about something and you analyze the segment I'm in, which is I'm just an angry guy on the internet, and then Scott's yelling about something and he represents a group that's going to do something about it, those are very different audiences to understand and to make sure you have insights into, because we might confuse us as the same person when we're not, or the same segment.
One more thing, Tim, and then I'll throw the mic back to you. A lot of people, like I was saying, wave the AI wand. A lot of people might think that ChatGPT is the end-all be-all to AI. But what we're talking about now is ripe for what's called graph data science, or graph neural networks that are understanding relationships between each post from each platform. You can start to get really granular in how you understand the link prediction between content and people's influence.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in here, and that's a really good point about ChatGPT, and that I think most people, like me, who are not, Scott, you've had over a decade, maybe 2 decades of experience in AI, and know this stuff inside and out. But for most of us, we think, oh, it's a chat assistant that allows us to, write documents faster or get outlines done and things like that. But the reality is, like, the real power of AI, sort of what we're talking about now, is like enhancing processes that already exist. And that actually leads me to my next question here, which is, we've talked a little bit about how, like, broadly how AI can help, but for let's say a social media manager or a director at a mid-sized company is hearing this and sounds excited, what specific things do we think that this could do to actually really have them have actionable data that they can return? So I'll leave that to all of you.
Well, a systemic problem I see across the board with AI in general, not just for marketing, is that it goes into the abyss of data science land, and there's a black box that comes back, and there wasn't enough collaboration along the way. So what I recommend marketers do is be involved in the project all the way through. Set out with the right data sources to collect information from, and you have a menu of choices. I mean, just between SocialGist and PyQ, you cover a wide gamut of collection capability. Once you have the data collected, as Aaron was starting to allude to, you need to get deeper into what are you trying to do with the audience analytics? What are you trying to ferret out from this mound of data? And that's where I think the collaboration really needs to stay intact, so that data scientists that are using the machine learning techniques really understand the subject matter and what the marketer is trying to get from it. Is it targeting? Is it ICP determination? Is it looking for emerging trends? Those are all different capabilities that AI can support, but data scientists will, go down a lane and might not address the real crux of the problem.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Scott. When we started our relationship, our journey together, it was really PyQ wanting to, utilize some AI capabilities. I was a bit of a novice at the time. I've learned quite a bit through our relationship and understanding how that interaction needs to take place in order to develop models that are truly effective. Jaxon is behind the development of our authenticity score that we've built in order to determine fake from real social media content, which nowadays is more important than ever. And that relationship, well, initially, I think we told Scott and his team, we'd love for you to help us build this score. Here's some things that you can look at from measurements as to, attributes related to profiles and profile activities. And then you're learning that the scores, how much better the scores got with the interactivity of in the relationship and building those models.
Aaron, an interesting fact for you that I was just reading this morning in prep for this is misinformation or disinformation campaigns are supposed to have $80 billion worth of damage. That's up 150% from 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And now 87% of the C-suite are saying reputation management is the most important thing for obvious reasons, because you see that people either leverage it or they get really hurt by it, right? Look at the Target example, look at the Bud Light example for just commercial reasons. And Tim, back to your question to like about how AI will help these people do their jobs better. I think Scott made an excellent point, was properly connected with these tools, and Aaron just gave an example of how he's able to do that. It makes them much more powerful, right? It should take your capability to understand and analyze what's going on in a space and level it up if you do it correctly. A very simple example might be if you are analyzing an issue. It used to be that to properly analyze an issue, you have to be a domain expert. You have to know the language of the audience you're looking at and think you're looking at many different audiences. You have to know the language of the platform, those types of things. Now you don't have to guess nearly as much about what is important. The AI can suggest things to you and allow you to build models off of that are much more encompassing than just your old-fashioned domain expertise. So it's you plus additional capability.
Right.
Wow, that's it.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I was going to say, I haven't heard that figure yet. I mean, we deal with the numbers on the various, the larger social media platforms as to how much of the daily activity is fake versus real. I hadn't yet heard the number of $80 billion. That's pretty significant. That's pretty huge.
Yeah, I'll give you the link. We can post it after this. The other thing I saw in my research was there's 200 sites that are creating news websites that are just AI. So like these are new spam farms. So next year, what's that going to be? 5,000 sites? I mean, it's really going to be an interesting new world with generative AI.
Well, and that's where the disinformation machine and the variety of uses that it's applied to is much more than just bots. I mean, the bot market is huge. If you go out there and just do a Google search for buy Twitter engagements, buy Twitter followers. I mean, you will get site after site after site that are selling these fake engagements, fake activity, fake profiles. You can go out there, and if you want to buy an age Twitter profile that already has 10,000 followers that was created in 2012, you can go buy it. You may pay $100 for it, but you can go buy it, right? Anything is purchasable now. The number that we've assessed is that 40% of the daily social media activity right now on the major social media platforms is fake. Is contrived. 40%. So if you're trying to do social listening, that seems almost the base layer that you need to separate out to understand, especially if somebody is applying these techniques against your company, and this gets to the $80 billion that you're talking about. If I really have an axe to grind, I'm in opposition, I'm, for whatever reason, and I want to apply this new capability in my arsenal to achieve my, whatever my objectives are, these tools are readily available and they're not terribly expensive. And how is somebody whose job in a company is to, conduct social listening, to manage brand reputation, digital brand reputation, what are they going to do with this information, right?
Yeah. I'll take a step further, and sorry, back to you, Tim. Beyond just authenticity, you also have a lot of irrelevant content. So if we're trying to empower the analysts, which is, I think, the goal of AI, not to replace them, but to empower them, getting it to the point, getting the data or the interface that you're analyzing the data to be very relevant to your subject matter is a key. It's a way to get it be useful.
I just want to add to that, Scott. We conducted a research analysis and recommendations for a tourism agency, national tourism agency that was looking to bring a European country, looking to bring tourists into their particular country. Wanted to know where they should target, how they should target them. One of the things that we came up with was Russia was a big target market for them. So the first thing you talk about travel, we were talking about the importance of different platforms. When you talk about travel and tourism, you're talking about Instagram, TikTok now to a large degree as well. So that one of our efforts was then to identify key influencers that they could potentially target and engage with to help in their tourism efforts. So what are we doing? We're looking at Russian based Russian language influencers on Instagram. We developed a target list. We started analyzing those. The number one, she had 6 million followers, had already been to Turkey, beautiful pictures. When we started analyzing her audience, though, most of her audience was not in Russia. So this gets to, how performance metrics, those shallow performance metrics just aren't good enough. They're not actionable. You need to be able to get layers down to be able to apply something in a systemic, scalable way that gives you, information that you can actually do something with.
So just to chime in here, so we're obviously, for the audience watching, like we're throwing a lot of things at them. There's a lot of like really interesting things coming, right? Like the disinformation campaigns and the spam and the bots is only becoming a bigger issue. And so, it for a social person, it's probably feeling a little overwhelming, right? They're like, oh my God, like, how am I going to do this? I don't have a data science team because a lot of like mid-sized companies, small businesses and mid-sized companies don't. And so this is going to be starting with a question for Scott, and then it's going to move to the rest of you guys. But like for a team that has some resources and wants to like really get specific and really find out who their customers are and how to target them, what do they do? Like where do they start?
Yeah, it's a great question. It really depends. I'm on my soapbox about really narrowing down what you're looking for from the data. It really starts with defining the problem that you're up against. Finding the right data is certainly a big piece of the puzzle. Again, between PyQ and SocialGist, you cover a wide swath. But then it gets into coercing, I like to say, the AI models to do what it is that you want them to do. Is it just bucket the data into certain categories? Is it to do, like I mentioned earlier, graph data science, where you're looking at relationships between posts, relationships between platforms, trying to surface trends and patterns? Those are different tasks and different tools and skill sets that you'll need to accomplish those tasks. I mean, of course, the short answer is bring Jaxon on and we'll help you.
That was the answer I was looking for.
Well, back to my earlier comment, it's not a magic wand. You really have to understand how to use this awesome technology to your advantage, but use it right.
Yeah, and I think that that's such an important point. And I do, I'm going to put my sales marketing hat on for a second and say, like, it's why it's important to work with somebody like, Scott with Jaxon and the PyIQ and the SocialGist folks who can, for teams that like haven't really dug into this a lot, there are people out there that can help you with this. And I think that this is a crew with a ton of experience and, have done unbelievable work doing exactly what we're talking about today. So, for folks who are listening or listening later, if you're interested for learning more, drop a comment here and we'll be in touch with you. But yeah, I think like for most, like I've run social teams even with 20 people, and trying to do something like this, we would have had to have brought somebody in because there's just no way we would have been able to do it. So I think it's really important.
And there's different stages in that process too, right? I think the first stage is just trying to develop a better understanding of how to dig deeper, how to structure a team or an effort to gather even some intelligence or analysis. Being able to then later, build that into something systemic and scalable, right? That's a whole other issue. But I mean, even with a small data science team, social listening team, if you start using some of these concepts around audience characteristics, active participants and their characteristics, what their relationships look like, and how you then might be able to go about getting that data so you can analyze it, whether it be native through the platforms or through a company like PyQ or SocialGist. I think the first step is just understanding, oh, there's a better way to look at this rather than what has been continually put out for the last, 15 years, 10 years.
I would add on both your points, and Tim, you said it very correctly. It can seem quite daunting, right? Here we are saying there's all this misinformation damage that's happening. It's easier than ever to create for bad actors to hurt your company. That's true, but the same tools exist on the other side, right? Tools are neither good nor bad. It's the people that are using them. And so don't be scared of that, because there's going to be people on the good side of the tool users that can help you, like Jaxon and Aaron and us. And I think so then your job is really to just make sure that you are using the latest version of this technology to make sure that you are not susceptible to somebody that's using a technology above you.
Right. And I think that's a really good point about that, all of this is daunting and intimidating too, for folks in the marketing world in particular that haven't really had to do this stuff. But I want to pivot on to your positive point, which I think is a more exciting and thrilling part of doing this than the reputation management stuff, which can be difficult. But on emerging trends, like, I'd love to kick this to the entire group here, as far as we're talking about being able to sort of try to filter out bots and do these things, but like, how can we use AI in our social listening to try to start really figuring out emerging trends and really get ahead of it, and position yourself at the head of the game rather than playing catch up?
I'll take that one. I'll use some real brand names here, and we're not working with them, so I'm not violating anything. But say Pepsi, who owns Lay's, is trying to go into Brazil in a bigger way, and they want to make sure that they're marketing and positioning themselves with the right segments and with the right messaging or say flavor of potato chip, getting down to that detail level, which is a refreshing topic from the finding the bad guys topic I usually deal with social listening. You want to understand the trends and patterns within that particular geography and with particular demographics. They want to target, say, the younger generation. What are the flavors that the kids are eating there? What are they talking about? What's getting them to come to the store and buy those potato chips? And how can they ultimately sell more stuff by using the combined social knowledge to direct their marketing campaigns?
Aaron, I'd have to guess when, I think about what you're doing and how these tools are helping you, everything must be faster, right? It's got to be quicker time to insight, quicker creative generation. So what this will do for social listening is allow people to move quicker and have an impact faster on their actual businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's certainly, and that's the reason for this talk, an AI component that helps us do some of this automatically, that helps us generate some post intelligence using social media data. But there's still a visualization, a manual analysis component that's important, and that we find based off of some of the graphs that we've built with inside of our platform, that allows us to just analyze this data faster, which then allows us also not only allows us to analyze the data faster, but allows us to see things that we wouldn't otherwise see if we weren't bringing this data together in a combined format that then allows us to better mature our AI models to develop things like authenticity scores. It allows us to do better analysis using NLP for sentiment analysis for different topics.
Scott, question for you. Since you're on the AI model side, have you seen that clients, because when they build an AI model the way you described it, they trust the output more and thus are able have more confidence combining with other data sets to kind of do more intelligent business analytics? That's my hope, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back to the Lay's analogy, it's not just about the social, it's also about point of sale data and any alt data that they can bring into the mix to better understand the audience and better position it. I want to warn that it's not just a wave your wand again. It really does have to have things like populating knowledge graphs and using those as knowledge bases for the large language models to lean on, to have a reference to address things like the hallucination problem, if you've heard about that with the ChatGPTs of the world, so that you can ultimately trust it more. But that absolutely is the goal, is to make the whole process that much faster and have a higher level of trust in the predictability. I'm not saying explainability, the predictability of the outputs of the model system.
And I think, sorry, I'm just going to cut in real further from the social perspective. I think that's another really important thing that I think tends to get lost from marketing team perspectives, is exactly what you said, Scott. It's not just, as somebody talking about a particular flavor or a particular item or something. It's also marrying all of these different pieces. So it's important for businesses internally also to be sharing this data across. Social can tend to get siloed. It's the thing that everybody in the social community talks about, but this is also a really good way for social teams to show even more value. Is look, this is just a piece of it, but we've got to pull all these separate areas together, and we can really get a holistic view of what we're looking at here, and which will make targeting and marketing much more effective. So I think that's a huge component of this.
Yeah, let me put this back on the moderator. So you ran direct outreach for the Obama campaign, and then for as part of his administration, went on to ran, as you mentioned, a 20+ person team at WeWork around social and direct marketing. How have you seen things progress over the years, and how is AI making it better?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was in the Obama administration, I ran digital for the Interior Department, which is national parks and Fish and Wildlife Service and stuff like that. I mean, my team was 3 people, and that was all of digital. So it was DOI.gov and the social channels. So it was basically me. So my social listening was literally going into the replies and just trying to get through as much as possible. These accounts at the end had millions of followers. So I missed 95% of it. At WeWork, obviously very different from the Interior Department, but really it was sort of similar on a smaller scale, but we had more people on it, and this was a few years ago. So I could imagine now, if I was doing this, being able to use AI to marry. We had influencers that were out there doing things for us, so being able to track that plus what we were doing on organic, and then also, frankly, the passes, the daily passes, monthly passes, and desks that we were selling. If we could have merged that together, I think that we would have been a lot more effective at targeting the right people. Because with organic, you sort of just blast out, and you sort of look at what's working in each individual post. But yeah, I think it's going to be a hugely beneficial thing. I don't think many teams are doing it right now, which is why I think this session was so popular. But yeah, I think that it's a really exciting area for sure.
Well, thank you for that. One misnomer I think people assume is that you just need to amalgamate the data, pool it into one big data repository and integrate it together. That's not the case. It's really understanding the relationships between each isolated post, and how you populate the knowledge graph that I keep harping on is really key, so that you can look at the weight between the links of each post, and then you can adjust it as new data comes in, and you can adjust it with your own human understanding of how things operate or what you're looking for, so that it is getting more and more in tune with what the ROI will be for your organization.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, yeah, and it's an area that hasn't really been pursued very well in the social world, just because of teams are not resourced correctly and things like that. But I think this is like a monster opportunity for the social world to really be really seen as real drivers of revenue, which they are. It's just really hard to tell at the moment, and I think these AI tools certainly can help push that along.
I know we're at time, and I'm the advocate for stopping at the half-hour point. But Aaron, I would love to just put to you or ask you to share with everyone, beyond just authenticity, when it comes to the style of posters and the drive or what roles they play with posting, things like amplifiers and influencers and guards and whatnot. Can you just share a little bit about your knowledge on that subject?
Sure. I mean, we as a company, we do spend an awful lot of time looking at authenticity and looking at quantifying authenticity and disinformation campaigns across the various social media channels. And what we find, but this also applies to authentic networks as well. Real people is there's quite a spectrum, and I'll break it up in the disinformation. You know effort is you have your bots, right? So you have your amplifiers, you have individuals that are just there to like, share, and comment in any such way. So you can either trend information, you can you can get other eyeballs, get it bubbling to the top depending on which platform you're on. But you also have other individuals that have more sophisticated roles within inside those narratives, whether it be to deflect against argumentative conversations, to try to pull that away from a main point that whether it's authentic or disinformation is looking to promote, looking to pull those. You've got blockers, right? You've got amplifiers. You've obviously got the influencers, which are the ones that we all know of. We talk about the importance of using what we call anchors, and those would be publications, news stories, influencers, but significant, mega influencers with millions of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers. And how now you add in some of the generative AI stuff related to deepfakes that are helping to trick audiences' reactions. But those types of anchors that tie to what we would call the real world, that then gets used and amplified by the various influence campaigns, whether they're disinformation or not, and the various chess pieces that are applied to help push that forward. And I think we're going to see we saw an advancement of that on the disinformation side over the last 7 years, 8 years. I think we're going to see a catch up on the brand reputation side as those campaigns get more sophisticated, understanding that this is now the ecosystem that you live in, and you need to be able to apply different resources to manage your own narrative rather than letting somebody else manage it.
Great.
Yeah, so people trust things that they're reading, and they especially trust if it's anchored by a news source or someone that they have already formed a relationship with around that trust. And so social influence can hugely impact the way people are thinking based off of that flow of understanding of a particular topic.
Yeah, I worked the influence game on the U.S. government side for many years before I stepped over into the commercial side, and it's the same mechanisms that they would use there as well, which is you're looking for those assets, you're looking for those individuals that are real, that have some type of celebrity status. You're looking for news agencies, whether state run or independent, that you can, again, as I use the term anchors, you can use some snippet of that story and then hopefully use it authentically but obviously there's plenty that don't and that twist it any the way that they want, take a kernel of truth, expand it into a story that'll run, a significant amount of time. We did analysis around and I'm not making a political position on vaccine or anti-vaccine. This is just the data that we analyzed. We analyzed data related to anti-vaccine across the major social media platforms and found that in the beginning of those initiatives on the social media platforms, 80% of the activity were coming from fake sources. And in the beginning, a lot of it was sourcing from China. So, it is still the Wild West out there. You just don't know what to believe in, what not to believe in, until you dig into the data, right? And that's where we've got to get to, is to that level of granularity, so we can understand how as managers for brand reputation, how we should react.
And that was a great framing. I've never heard it that clearly before. And Scott, I can see why you would need a knowledge graph in order to accomplish that, for sure.
Exactly.
Great. All right. Well, we are at time. I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today, and also our esteemed panel of Scott, Justin, and Aaron. This was a really great conversation. If you are just joining us or joining us a little bit late, this should be live immediately after we hit the live at the end stream on the Jaxon page, so you'll be able to watch that there. And otherwise, thank you all for joining in. This was by far the most popular one we have done. We will definitely do more of these very soon. So thank you again, and we'll look forward to chatting with you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.